Are you in your second, third, or fourth marriage? If the answer to that question is yes, and you have children from a prior relationship, a second marriage trust is one that you should seriously consider. That's because the goal of this trust is to protect each spouse's respective estate, first for the benefit of the other spouse, but ultimately the assets of both a wife and husband can pass down to each of their own children from prior relationships. How does this work? Well, while the couple is married, all their assets are held in one trust. After the death of the first of them, though, the trust splits apart into the deceased spouse's portion of the estate and the survivor's portion of the estate. The deceased spouse's portion is held in one or both of a bypass trust and a Q-tip, or qualified terminable interest trust, and the surviving spouse's portion of the estate is held in his or her survivor's trust. The survivor's trust can be spent by the survivor any way he or she wants, but the deceased spouse's portion of the estate perhaps only pays, depending on how you want to set it up, income to the survivor and only otherwise can be used for his or her health care expenses. After you're both gone, however, each of your respective estates goes to each of your own children. Let's take a look at an example to see how this might work. Husband, who has 4 children, marries wife, who has 1 child. All 5 children are from prior relationships. Husband enters the marriage with $2 million of his own separate property, and wife enters the marriage with $100,000 of her own separate property. While married, they earn and save an additional $1 million in community property. No matter who passes away first, the income derived from both their assets, or all $3.1 million, is paid out to the surviving spouse, and also any amount can be used for his or her health care expenses. But with a second marriage trust, if everything else is equal, at the death of both spouses, because of the nature of community and separate property, $600,000 will pass to the wife's child, while $2.5 million will go to the husband's 4 children, or $625,000 to each child of the husband. As a point of comparison, a second marriage trust is undoubtedly more equitable than all of their assets going to the child or children of just one of the spouses, a scenario entirely possible when using a basic living trust. Arguably, this distribution scheme is much more fair to all their children and helps avoid awkward disagreements as well as potentially damaging litigation, which pits the surviving spouse against the child or children of the deceased spouse. Please note that there are many variations to a second marriage trust, but the main idea is that it protects both spouses as well as the premarital interests of both a wife and husband, so that that interest can ultimately pass to their own children from prior relationships.